Ole Miss leads all schools in America with Senior Bowl watch list players. There's 20 total from the Ole Miss roster that is being looked at by the Senior Bowl. Plus, we give our post-camp offensive report card grades. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis, and this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Ole Miss had a major showing, and before we get to report cards, I think we need to talk about this for a second. 20 Ole Miss players made the Senior Bowl watch list, more than any other school in America. You heard me correctly. I think second was Tennessee with 19, but nobody is 20 or above but Ole Miss. And if you look at the players that got selected, there's 8 offensive players, there's 12 defensive players. And, you know, even though I went to school in Simpson County in Mississippi and have to use fingers and toes, I can count to 12. And I do realize that 11 players play on defense at one time. So more than the starters, allegedly, are watch list players as well. Offensively, like Jordan Watkins, Zakhari Franklin, Trey Harris, every wide receiver, Caden Priestcorn's on the list as well. Ulysses Bentley, the fourth. There's a lot of players that could stand out. 2 offensive linemen, a very well-rounded unit that is being selected. And whenever we told you, and we did tell you, that Ole Miss had a chance to have a really good football team, and this team had more talent than at any point in my lifetime, and all of this stuff, this should be proof that we weren't just saying it, that it actually really is happening. Now, just because of those watch list players, just because of this talent, does not mean that Ole Miss is not going to go 7-5. Okay? The old coach is saying your potential is going to get me fired is in play this year. All of this talent, all of these players have a chance to make really big impacts at the SEC level. Now they just need to do it. It's on them. 20 players, 22 players for a start is the starting lineup, offense and defense. 20 players are on the watch list for the Senior Bowl. So we'll tune in for that. 8 players offensively on that list at all as well. So let's talk a little bit about the post-fall camp, I should say, report card for each position groups. And we're going to close with the wide receivers because, honestly, I think Trey Harris deserves to sit that and get that by himself. So we're going to hit the second segment on that. But we're going to start where we should start, where we always start, and that is with the quarterbacks at Ole Miss. And Jaxson Dart was named a watch list for the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award for quarterbacks. So this is another situation. Ole Miss is using a lot of red this year. I'm seeing a ton of red. This has been a very blue-centric school since 2020. I'm seeing in these graphics and all this stuff a ton of red. That's kind of off topic, and I might be getting my ADD in the way. But that can't mean nothing. So, but Jaxson Dart is positioned as a watch list for the Johnny Unitas Award, and Spencer Sanders is in that room as well. And then you have Austin Simmons and Walker Howard. I spoke with, Michael Borky last night. And I don't think Ole Miss realizes what they have in the quarterback room right now. I don't think their fans realize exactly what this is. Because we haven't seen it. It's almost like just mentally trying to fathom the distance between Earth and Jupiter. I mean, Ole Miss players are set up through their lifetime, unless you are 70 and above, that if the starting quarterback gets injured, your season's tanked. There's been very few times that there have been 2 really good quarterbacks that Ole Miss can lean on. But there's never been 3, not in my lifetime. and most certainly have not been 4. Now they have 4 quarterbacks, and they all seem to be performing relatively well. I think the quarterback room at this point gets an A+, and honestly, they deserve it. They should have it. Quarterbacks have been the strength, in my opinion, of fall camp, and it is because of the improvement that Jaxson Dart has made. It's because of Spencer Sanders pushing him and doing what he can do to try and win the job, even though it doesn't look like it's going to happen, and having 2 real talented hotshot freshmen. I mean, this room is absolutely unbelievable, and everybody should be impressed about what's going on through camp and period in the quarterback room. Now, at the end of the season, I'm expecting 2 to leave, okay? And if Jaxson Dart has a huge, big year, that could be Jaxson Dart and Spencer Sanders to graduation, leaving a competition between Walker Howard and Austin Simmons. But if Jaxson Dart does not have the big year and does not go pro, I think Austin Simmons at that point will be a flight risk. I don't think Walker Howard is going anywhere at the moment. So that is just my opinion on that as well. Now, if you look at the running back room, everybody knows what we have with Quinshon Judkins, okay? Everybody knows. He's the best running back in college football. Heck, he might be the best college football player. But Ulysses Bentley IV has shown a tendency to be injury prone during his time at Ole Miss. And Kedrick Criscano, you can't really count on a true freshman to do what Quinshon Judkins did just a year ago. So Lane Kiffin knew about this and thought about this in the Alabama game. If Bentley was there and Zach Evans hadn't been hurt, all of a sudden Ole Miss likely wins that game. Zach Evans does not get hurt, Ole Miss wins that game. Lane Kiffin is aware of this as well. So he went out and got a little bit more depth that can be ready to play. Jam Griffin is from Georgia. He's a zone runner, did very well at Oregon State. Now they're an under center team. He has to learn how to do it out of the shotgun, but he has a chance to do that as well. Stylistically, he matches up well with Quinshon, with Ulysses Bentley IV, and with Kedrick Criscano. So you can tell how this team could be pretty good, honestly, at the running back position. So A+ at running back. That's A+ and A+. All right. Next up, we're going to go tight end. And the tight end, Caden Prieskorn, is gone above and beyond, is on the leadership council, and is just honestly a really good football player. Everybody has said nothing but positive things about Caden Prieskorn. And the emergence of Kyron Heath is something we need to keep our eyes on as well. The downside to the tight end position room is that Michael Trigg, it looks like, has had another fall camp like last fall camp. And Michael Trigg has gone from being a super matchup problem, Brock Bowers type of player, to essentially a lottery ticket, to where if he figures it out, all of a sudden you can use him and your offense is going to get that much better. Hudson Wolf is actually playing. Everybody should be excited about that. There's not an Ole Miss fan out there that shouldn't be excited about Hudson Wolf on the football field. So with Caden Prieskorn and Hudson Wolf and Kyron Heath, you have a pretty deep tight end room. But when you look at what that tight end room could be, if Michael Trigg was an extremely good, productive player inside the scheme, I'm going to have to give the tight end room a B at the moment because of that lottery ticket. That is what I think that is going to be as well. Now, if you look at the offensive line, I think Chuck Rounsaville said that the offensive line appears to have real depth this season. And part of that is because the tackles did not play in the spring, which forced Ole Miss to give reps to younger players in the spring. You have Caleb Warren, who has not played much in fall camp, although I hear he is getting some reps now. Reese McIntyre has been snapping the ball. And at left guard, you've had a competition between Eli Acker and Victor Kern, and I think Quincy McGee is even getting involved there. So you have about an 8 deep of players that are getting at least pretty good looks at this point. So that is a good situation. Now, I am not going to give them an A because I need to see what happens. This is a good offensive line, though. I want to see if they take a step and improve from last season. If they can do that, all of a sudden this offensive team, this Ole Miss team could go from good to great. And the Mercer game, the thing that I'm going to be looking at is snapping the football. One of the major issues that Ole Miss football had last season was with the quarterback center exchange. We basically could not run jet sweeps because of it. So I want to see if Reese McIntyre or Caleb Warren or whoever is in the game snapping the football is coming and doing an excellent job. Now, Jeremy James, I'm pretty confident about. The two tackles, Micah Pettis and Ayden Williams, I'm pretty confident about. So at the center position and snapping, the quarterback center exchange and left guard is what I'll have my eye open as well. Whenever we come back, we will look at the wide receiver position because I think that Ole Miss has a low-key superstar at wide receiver, and I'm not talking about Ayden Williams. So stick around for that as well. Do want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is the perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay's guaranteed fit, you can be sure that every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check mark to know your part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with 122 million parts to choose from, you can be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. So get the right parts and the right fit with the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay's guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. The two-part Ultimate College Football Preview is live on Locked On SEC. Hey, I was on this program. I had to deal with all the condescension. I had to fight for all the respect that Ole Miss gets, and I fought for you, and I think I fought the good fight. But it's available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Ole Miss every day, your team every day. So tune in for that. So I'm bullish on this team. So pretty excited about that. Now, we're going to talk about the wide receivers, and specifically, we're going to talk about Trey Harris. Now, wide receivers is not an A+ unit. Wide receivers might not be A or a B+ unit, but they might have the most potential of anybody on the offensive side of the field. And that's with having the best running back in college football. That's with having award watch list members all over the place. But all three of the major contributors that are seniors are on the Senior Bowl watch list. That's Trey Harris, Zakhari Franklin, and Jordan Watkins. That is who we were going into thinking was going to be the starting three. Now, we'll have to see exactly what happens. Will Zakhari Franklin move inside with Ayden Williams taking a position outside? I'm not 100% sure about that. But this is what you can count on with Trey Harris. First of all, he came to Ole Miss because of the slogan and everything. Ole Miss is pretty good with its slogans. The Score from Far stuff that they did with Jeff Lebby, that saying really got his attention and got him thinking Ole Miss. Trey Harris, if you look at him play, there's clips that have popped up on the internet. And honestly, heck, I'm just, Dante Moncrief, if you're watching this, tell me if I'm right. Tell me if I'm wrong. I could be completely wrong, but he looks like a Dante Moncrief type receiver. Whenever you look at these big physical wide receivers, there's really three or four players that you can be. That if you're these big physical wide receivers, and that is in Ole Miss parlance, we'll say the Dante Moncrief guy, which is the athletic big guy, the athletic physical receiver, the Laquan Treadwell, kind of the physical freak, the AJ Brown, who is super super big and athletic and just can be a mismatch problem for everybody involved. And DK Metcalf, who's just a physical specimen. I think Trey Harris can be somewhere between DK Metcalf and Dante Moncrief. I think that's the wing of the house that he lives on. He has been the alpha all through fall camp. All the other receivers, everything's going on. He's commenting on other receivers. He is being the alpha in fall camp, and he should be. And you're seeing him clips they're putting on Twitter of him making unbelievable one-handed catches and things like that. So he is poised for a major breakout season in 2023. And I think that could start as early as Mercer. There's nobody on Mercer's team that can stay with him. Doesn't matter who lines up on him. It's a mismatch. That could be this. You could almost say the same for any of the 4 pass catchers, any of the 5, if you include the running backs out there. There should be mismatches. This is a game where Jaxson Dart should complete 75% of his passes, 300 yards, and the game should be over somewhere in the middle of the third quarter. Earlier than that, but we'll be nice about it. But Trey Harris and that score for far thing got his attention with Ole Miss. But whenever you talk about him being the alpha, he was asked about Ayden Williams, and he said he's a dog, and you can see why Ayden Williams got the number 1 jersey and all of that stuff. He said all the right things. Something that somebody would say that is a captain of the room, somebody that you need to pay attention to. You know, whenever these interviews happen, occasionally they can get your attention. It's like, whoa, I need to listen to him. He sounds just tonally like he knows something. I need to pay attention to him. So you have somebody that's making plays all through fall camp. You have him being the person that's talking about young guys in camp. And that is something that you need to pay attention to. You have Jordan Watkins as well in the slot. Zakhari Franklin. By the way, Zakhari Franklin, we're in a weird situation where Ayden Williams and his talent, even though the mentions of Ayden Williams have slowed down in the second part of camp, which is expected. That happens to every single true freshman. Zakhari Franklin has not yet, I don't think, stepped on the field. Is Ayden Williams sitting at that number 1? Is it Braylon Brown? Who is the second receiver? Who is wide receiver 2? That is an interesting question. Now, if it's not Ayden Williams, that means Ayden Williams, whenever Zakhari Franklin comes back, might be a down rotation guy. But I do think it is possibility, and something that we should look at is these extra reps that Ayden Williams he's getting could cause Zakhari Franklin to move inside. Zakhari Franklin was a slant monster at UTSA. Him and Trey Harris were contested catch machines. These are players, along with Caden Priestcorn, who's an excellent contested catch machine as well, were obviously brought in to give Jaxson Dart more confidence across the middle of the field. So we'll see what this offense looks like. What you need to pay attention to, and this grade that I'm going to give them, they are, I'm going to say, a B+. Going with a B+ at wide receiver. Has a chance to go up, but a B+. Now, this is what you need to look for in the Mercer game, okay? Not necessarily that we're scoring a ton of points. I don't even care if they only score 31. Now, I prefer a blowout, but you know what I mean. But this is what you need to look for. First of all, is the quarterback center exchange on point to where they can time up jet sweeps, where that looks somewhat natural, because that is a timing play. Whenever the ball is getting snapped, they're in motion, but they want that ball to get there to where you can hand it off. Is that snap coming quickly? Is it coming on time? Second, middle of the field passing. Caden Priestcorn, Jordan Watkins, whoever's in the middle of the field, are they doing that? Are they throwing the ball to the running backs as number 3? Is he using the running backs to pull defenders out of the middle of the field that is lined up and playing man coverage? And who is lined up at the wide receiver 2? Is it Ayden Williams? Is it Braylon Brown? Who is the dude out there? And is Trey Harris attracting a ton of attention? Those are the questions that are going to surround this offense as we leave camp. And if they can do all of that checklist that I put it on, if all of the answers to that is yes, Ole Miss will score 60 points against Mercer and be ready for the Tulane Green Wave. 2 extremely hot football games. Ole Miss needs to get through them. Also, I am worried about cramping. I am worried about that. Anyway, when we come back, we are going to look at Jeremy Scott and talk about his highlights a little bit. He's a recruit that I couldn't find any video for, so I wasn't able to do a breakdown earlier in the summer. I got some video for him. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. But I do want to let you know that today, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know, I got out of the military about 20 years ago. It's 2004. And it's a situation that was very stressful. I was in a foreign country all by myself with my wife, I guess, and no family, no big support group. All the people that you were used to dealing with, nobody was there. It was just me and my wife to get everything figured out. And while that might be positives at times, it can be very well negatives when you're both going through the same stuff and you're having trouble making decisions. And sometimes in life, we're faced with tough choices and the path forward isn't always clear. Whether you're dealing with decisions around career or relationships or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected with what you really want while trying to navigate life so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your personal values is like anything else. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. Whether or not you've been to therapy, personally talk to somebody, and verbalize what's going through. And if you can find that person to talk to and get your feelings out and to know exactly what's going on, that can help you learn positive coping skills and where boundaries needs to be. And it basically empowers you to be the best version of yourself. So if you're thinking of giving therapy a try, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So that's a pretty big deal because whoever you're talking to, you need to trust that what they're telling you is what you need to hear. So that is pretty cool and good, pretty cool indeed. So let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedoncollege today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedoncollege. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy does a fantastic job. And as we get closer to the college football season, he can absolutely help you out. That is really cool. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right, we're going to do a little bit of breakdown. We're working towards the season. Monday, we start game week. Yay, week 0 is this weekend. We're so fired up about all of that. But one of the main recruiters in Ole Miss's class is Jeremy Scott. And he is also one of the few recruits on Ole Miss's class that does not necessarily have a ton of huddle film. And that is because, honestly, Callaway isn't on huddle anymore. So that affects Jeremy Scott with getting rated in scouting services and things like that, because everybody's used to finding huddle video, and whenever you don't have it, it's so frustrating. But I think he is on Quick Cut. But he is, let's see, 6'4", 185. Absolutely huge wide receiver out of Jackson, Callaway. Ole Miss has had success with Callaway. And you look at his ratings, you can see he's in the top 1,000, I guess. He's a 3-star player. Rated as the number 21 best case player in Mississippi, down at 34. Not even rated by ESPN. And like I said, it's hard to do it whenever your film can be difficult to get. And maybe he didn't camp all that much. I don't know exactly what happened, but something happened. And you look at these numbers and you can tell that it happened. So it's pretty important to do those things if you're being rated, or being rated is an important thing to you. Now, if you look at his highlights, and I think we should, I think he missed 3 games last year, and really, really good football player. But if you see him, he's a really athletic guy. There's a whole bunch in there, the offense of throw it up to this guy. Doesn't matter if he's covered or not. He's obviously the best player on the field. He's an alpha. That's what you like to see. And whenever you're dealing with Ole Miss with a big wide receiver, as Brian Smith likes to talk about, it's almost a no-brainer. They do such a fantastic job with these really big wide receiver. They have him listed at 6'4", 185. I think he's going to put on weight. He'll end up playing at 210, 215, 220, and he's going to be a combination of one of those plus wide receivers slash flex tight ends. And I think Ole Miss is going to try and find a way to use it. He might be a taller version of what Jonathan Mingo is. Anyway, at wide receiver, you can see where he can be a red zone problem for teams. Now, at Callaway, it looks like they're trying to get it done. The quarterback does a fantastic job, I mean, for a high school player, but we're not exactly dealing with Trevor Jackson on that side of the ball playing quarterback for Callaway. So we'll see exactly how that goes. But the best player on the field, my rule, and the rule that I always seem to have, is whenever I go to a high school football game, I do not want to see a roster. I want that player to stand out to me. And once he does, and if he does, all of a sudden you can kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, you can exhale and know that he actually belongs, because there's very few cases where a kid that is going to Ole Miss, even a kid that's going to like Mississippi State, should not be the best player on the field. Unless the high school is like Miami Central, he should be the best player on the field. If you're dealing with Callaway High School and the kid is going to Ole Miss, he should absolutely be the best player on the field. And he is absolutely the best player on the field. So today, we have gone over post-fall camp report card grades. We went over the Senior Bowl watch list, which Ole Miss has the most players in the country. And we looked at Jeremy Scott video. Jeremy is going to be interviewed on the show this weekend, so tune in for that. Last night was Michael Borky. Tonight is Brad Logan, and also David Eckert is supposed to happen this weekend as well. Brian Smith is stopping by. We're going to have him on. He's being interviewed after the Nareel White announcement, which is 10 o'clock Central on Friday. We have a lot of stuff going on, and honestly, this is really cool. Now, once we get into next week, okay, the order is going to change. The number of interviews is going to go a little bit down, because the pregame and the postgame show, we're going to let that breathe over the weekend. So those 4 interviews are not going to necessarily happen. So we'll have like Tom on Friday night, or maybe Brian on Friday night. We'll have Tom on Thursday night, or Brian, that is what we're going to do. But it could change just a little bit. We're still going to try and get David Eckert and Brad Logan, and heck, Michael Borky did a fantastic job on this show. They all have open-ended invitations to come back. They can whenever they want to. Whatever they have to say, I'll talk to every one of them. But those are basically coming for you guys. But so one last really busy week, and then we get into game week, and it's going to change just a little bit. It's pretty cool. Our goal is to be the dominant voice on Ole Miss athletics. I think we're well on our way to that. We want to thank everybody for listening. New sponsors are potentially coming. Stay tuned for that. And I hope everybody has a good Thursday. And thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every single day. Anyway, until tomorrow, when we're going to do the defenses post-camp report card grades, we'll see you then. Hotty toddy.